Yo, what up, Mr. Z Nation, aka Savage Armor June Giraffe, coming at you with another rant. Today, we're going to be defending Emperor Gaia because guess what? Everybody has been actually destroying Tachi players and just completely disrespecting them because of, the reveal of Gaia's effect. It's interesting to see that a lot of people had a high expectations for Tachikaze, and here's the reason why. Tachikaze, let's be real, it's not an overrated clan, but it's not an underrated clan at the same time. It's legitimately something that's completely down the middle, and it's like when you look at overrated clans, you got basically all the main character clans, like all three of the Paladins, Kagero, Link Joker, Bermuda Triangle, and all that other stuff. And then you have the underrated clans. Um, these are basically like Mega Colony, Spike Brothers, Nubatama, and all that other stuff. But then you kind of have like the ones that's down the middle, where it's like um there it's like either people like them or hate them. There's no in between. You do have a decent fan base and a decent player base, but it's just not as big as like the overrated clans that I was talking about. So Tachikaze is one of them, and then you'll kind of see like maybe Angel Feathers and Great Nature will be like another, and then I dare say like Nova Grapplers and possibly even Dark Irregulars. But yeah, these are basically like clans that you have people that either love them or hate them. They have a decent player base and everything else like that. So when I say that I'm very surprised that a lot of people outside of the Tachikaze player base actually had high expectations for a Tachikaze VR, I really mean that. It's not to be mean to like any like Tachikaze players. I'm a Tachi player myself, but it's interesting to see the huge backlash because people thought that this was going to be either Anger Blader 2.0 or better than Anger Blader. And honestly, I feel like that's the main issue and the main reason why I'm actually defending Gaia is not because I'm a Tachi player, but I do feel like that there is like a huge problem when it comes to the expectations and the reality when it comes to VRs. So and also that Gaia isn't really as bad as people make it out to be. Now here's the thing. You have an expectation versus reality thing when it comes to VRs. The expectation is what the player base expect the VR to be and how good the VR is, and the reality of either how the VR actually performs or how Bushiroad actually wants the VR to be. Okay, so here's a prime example. There's two particular things that people normally look at when it comes to the VR. If that particular VR has one of these two things, then it's something that people will want to give a chance to. But if it doesn't have these two particular things, then the VR has to have something in order for it to be justified, if that makes sense. So, the two things is guard restrict and an extra critical. Now Gaia does come with an extra critical, but it only happens when your opponent's at a grade 3 and whatnot. But we'll get to that in a little bit. The thing is, everybody's expecting the VR to have an extra critical or guard restrict, which is understandable, and sometimes even both. But if it doesn't, then the VR definitely has to be good and have something to confiscate for that, if that makes any sense. So, I have three examples. Two comes from this set, which is Gerdora and Rising Nova, and then I guess you can also put Revron as a major example because Revron's not only part of the meta, it also it also meets the demands of what the meta is, playing as right now. So The reason why Rise and Nova could get away without these two particular things is because, from one, it copies a grade 3 that you have, and two, you also have the fact that you do also have the fact that he gets two markers, two force markers, both force 1 and force 2. Despite that, we do have Bermuda Triangle, the Highlander build, which can put all three markers. And if I remember correctly, I think the Bane Dream stuff could do that too. Despite that, we have two clans that can do that. We have yet to have a clan that can do both of the markers together, because it's either one of the or. It's not it's not both of them at once. And now that Spike Brothers can finally do that, it gives people reason to not only play Spike Brothers, but it also gives people a good enough reason to buy Rising Nova and build a deck around them. With Ghidorah, on the other hand, yes, she doesn't have guard restricting. Yes, she doesn't get an extra critical, but you do also got to remember that she has almost unlimited searchability in field control just because of the cradle marker alone. Not to mention she does multi attack in a protect deck. So when you put all of that into consideration, yeah, Ghidorah has more than enough reason to become a decent VR and whatnot. Last one I did say Revron. Revron would probably be the most perfect example because not only he meets the expectations of what the public wants a VR to be, outside of not having the extra critical and the guard restricts, but you also got to remember that he is part of the meta, and he also is part of the demand of the meta as well. So what I mean by this is he minuses your opponent's Vanguard by 5k. He is able to do multiple attacks and is able to do a triple drive. I mean, the deck promotes multiple attacks and he's able to do a triple drive check. This is actually a lot of pluses for this particular card. At the same time, it does go into the demand of the meta because the meta right now is basically how strong is your grade 3 versus grade 2 turn. Can your grade 3 kill your opponent's grade 2 off before their opponent gets to a grade 3? That's the whole point of the meta. And honestly, I feel like that Revron has more than enough firepower to actually do this. Another one that I would definitely have to put into consideration, even though it's kind of debatable, is Dragonic Overload the Cross, because the extra critical does come from the force marker. And at the same time, I could also say Asha, because despite that, the force 2 marker does come with the extra critical. You also got to remember that she's more 90% of the time is going to have an extra 10k and a critical on 2 different attacks. So that makes perfect sense. So like I said, the expectations of what people expect for VR versus the reality, where the reality is where it's Gaia, where Gaia is overbalanced. It works around the rear guards, it works around the older support, and at the same time, it's balanced enough so you'll never see it necessarily on the restriction list and whatnot, because Bushiroad played it safe, which I do believe Bushiroad playing it safe is one of the major reasons why everybody's not really liking the VR as much as people should. That it honestly makes sense, to be honest. So when you put all that into consideration, now you have this community backlash from both Tachi Kaze players and non-Tachi Kaze players alone and stuff like that, where everybody's all like, oh yeah, the Tachi Kaze support's pretty bad and stuff like that because the VR is bad. And I'm gonna be real with you, we have had VRs that has also had the expectations of what people had, but because the support wasn't that good or because there was something missing with it, all of a sudden everybody's all like, oh yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, look at Grand Gallop and look at Yasui. Like, everybody don't necessarily like Grand Gallop because it can just get cucked by PGs despite it getting multiple criticals for no apparent reason. I also do feel like that it doesn't like really cater towards the grade 3 versus grade 2 game as well. And then you have Yasui, where yeah, Yasui is able to make more than one marker per turn, is able to do multiple Vanguard attacks, which is actually pretty good. But just like Clarence Sword, where it's also able to do multiple Vanguard attacks when the requirement is met, it's not enough for the meta. It's not enough. It's not strong enough. It's not fast enough or anything else like that to promote to the meta. So everybody just dismisses it, which is understandable that people dismiss it though. But I feel like that when you look at Clarence Sword, even though I just mentioned that people don't necessarily like him, because let's be real, people put Mordred. Everybody was expecting to be better than Mordred Phantom, and it wasn't. So that's kind of sort of the reason why it's getting the backlash it's getting. But you also got to remember that we just got two promo cards that actually help the deck out a lot. So my thing is with Gaia, and the reason why I'm defending Gaia is basically using Clarence Sword as a prime example. Clarence Sword didn't necessarily have the tools at the time of his release to actually make him a more valuable deck than Phantom, than Mordred Phantom. But let's be real, even though with the two new support cards, and even though with some of the support cards that's coming out in this set alone, um, even though it may not still cater towards what everybody's expecting to the VR, it still made it and improved on it 10 times better to make it more valuable. So even though it may not be as strong as Mordred, you have a very decent second option. And I basically feel like that's how Gaia should be treated. It's not the best option that Tachikaze has, but it is a second valuable option as well. Because let's be real, it was better than to have a clan that has multiple options to play with, during competitive play, during like casual play and everything else. What better way to have something that what a better way to have a clan that can actually play multiple things compared to, like, let's say, and I say this to no offense for Pale Moon players, where you legitimately only have Silverthorn to play with and only have Silverthorn to show with, despite that you have End of Stage Dragon, which, let's be real, it did get support though, but it's not good enough to actually be worth using in standard format. We don't have enough Nightmare Dolls to really justify a Nightmare Doll deck, despite that you could do it, but it's not going to be like, it's not going to be as good as people, let's just be disappointed in, in trying to do it. And then you also have Golden Beast Hammer, which was the original VR, which is still a pretty good VR, but there's nothing like around her support. There's no like decent enough generic support to like justify her. And then you also have Harry, where, let's be real, the Magia support is actually pretty good. The problem with the Magia doll support is the fact that there's not enough of them, in my honest opinion. I'm not saying that the ones that they have now is bad or anything else like that, but I feel like that if they have like maybe one or two more cards, maybe it will justify it. But it makes no sense that you have to strictly be bounded by the Magia doll support, and you only have like a limited amount of support for it. In their defense, they did have to share it with Silverthorns, which Silverthorns is the one that a lot of Pale Moon players want to play with anyway. So yeah, but I kind of feel like that's the same thing with Gaia. You got Ancient Dragons, which, I'm gonna be real with you, Ancient Dragons is pretty good, but I feel like that, and it might change because we still haven't got all of the support cards out yet. I feel like that if they get maybe one or two more cards as well, then it'll be a lot more justified. But I kind of feel like that, it has good support, but because everything has to be strict on the ancient dragon name, it kind of limits what you're able to do. So when you put into consideration, it's decent, but I feel like it would have been a lot better if it wasn't as strict, or it should have had a lot more support than what we were giving at the moment. And then you also have Gigarex Burn, where let's be real, it's just as slow as Gaia 2 though, but it still works because that's what everybody's using right now. And sadly, we can't really use Anger Blader. We can use Anger Blader at one, but that one doesn't necessarily make a huge difference. It's not like somebody just gonna go out and just make a Tachi Kaze deck just because we have Prison Bird and run the one Anger Blader. Nobody's gonna do that. Nobody has the balls to do that. And even if they did, it's not going to be consistent enough in order to justify it. So when you put all that into consideration, what else can we necessarily do? It's kind of unfair that Tachikaze, a clan that, let's be real, only gets support once a year in the second half of the year, might I add, is getting flack because they didn't get Anchor Blader 2.0. It makes no sense. Now, if this was like the thing with Royal Paladins when they got like Gancelot, it would have been a whole different story. Because Royal Paladins is a main character clan, and it didn't make any sense that Mordred Phantom did the exact same thing but 10 times better. If that makes any sense. So it was a little bit disappointing to see that. But I mean, let's be real. They got Altmaul, they got Majesty Lord Blaster, and they're about to get what is it? Saint Guards back. They're about to get Saint Guards back. So honestly, despite that Gancelot didn't meet up to a lot of people's expectations, despite Gancelot not being that good, they did get confiscated a lot better this whole year and beginning of next year when that whole Sangard stuff comes out. I mean, right now, like Majesty Lord Blaster is about to change the meta completely because it's an 18k base Vanguard that is able to make multiple force markers. So honestly, I don't see the big deal with the Gaia thing is. It's all like we still haven't had all the support released for Tachikaze yet, so there's a possibility that we might actually get a card that will make Gaia more justifiable, if that makes sense. We might get a card that makes it more justifiable. We might get it that will boost it so much that all the hate that it's getting right now will be like redirected and have a second look at it. But until that happens, they might even get a promo that might do the exact same thing. It might actually help it out a lot. But until then, we just have to deal with what Gaia comes up with right now. And honestly, yeah, we just have to wait and see what the rest of the support is gonna look like. Because even though Rise and Nova is pretty good, I do feel like that maybe there is like maybe a support card that they definitely need. I'm not too huge into Spike Brothers to look into that, but honestly, I do believe that there is something that they're kind of missing in order for it to be like near perfect for the meta. And the same thing with Gridora. I follow the Make It Colony stuff pretty often, and I do feel like that if they have one particular card that I'm hoping that we do get, then it would not only make it a better deck than it already is, but I also feel like that it will be the perfect anti-meta deck in the game, which is honestly something that I'm definitely hoping for as a Mega Colony main. But outside of that, my closing thoughts on Emperor Gaia. My closing thoughts. I would still say try it out because I feel like that this is something that should be experimented on. I mean, let's be real, there are other decks in the game that, despite not being part of the meta, it still has something good about it. I mean, look at Valkyrian. Valkyrian may not, oppose to the meta and whatnot, and Valkyrian may not be as good as like Revron. It may not be as good as Vanquisher. It might not be as good as I will even say next stage. It probably may not be as good as them, but it does hold some type of value. It does hold something that actually makes it playable, even if you want to play it in a competitive setting. Is it a meta deck? No, but it could be a decent rogue deck for somebody to try it out. So, and this is kind of sort of the same thing I'm seeing as Gaia. Maybe Gaia wasn't really meant to be meta, not right now. But I do feel like that in the decent future, whether it be somewhere in this wave of support or the next wave of support, or even maybe a promo card, it would definitely help Gaia out to be a 10 times better card. But that's all I gotta say about it. So, in my defense of Gaia, all I gotta say is give him a chance. That's all I gotta say is give it a chance. There's probably something that we might be missing. Rather it's an existing support or non-existing support. But for now, um, my name is Mrs. Z Nation. See you guys tomorrow. Uh, if you're new to the channel, like, comment, subscribe, do whatever. I don't give a shit. I'm signing out.